Welcome back to the BTS Happy Hour podcast. I'm your host, Andrea. With me today is Morgan.
Hey, what's up?
Charlie Puth was on Twitter on Sunday, July 5th to make a plea to BTS fans to back off, and he's calling it a dangerous, toxic internet screaming match between fandoms. So if you don't know who Charlie Puth is, he's a singer-songwriter who's known for songs such as We Don't Talk Anymore, which he sang with Selena Gomez, and he wrote See You Again, which is probably his biggest song from Fast and Furious 7. That was a tribute to Paul Walker after he died.
Right, that's his only big song, in my opinion.
So apparently he's got some posts on TikTok that got spammed by BTS Army and had a lot of comments like, remember when you used Jungkook for Clout? And a lot of other similar kind of posts where they accused him of using BTS for fame. But he decided to tweet about this on Sunday. So this was happening on TikTok, but then he decides to go on Twitter and send a message to, I guess, all of BTS Army to stop doing this, and saying he was accused of using BTS for clout, and he says, I don't know what that means. I love those guys. They are super talented. And he's trying to look at it as this is a bullying of him. And I guess in his past he was bullied, so that's what he's trying to relate that to. Now, the people that are saying that he used BTS for clout, that comes based on he worked with BTS a few years ago. Basically, Jungkook was a fan of his and did a cover of his song, We Don't Talk Anymore, and then this got Charlie Puth's attention, and then he praised that. And later on, he performed with BTS at a Korean awards show, the MGA Awards, in 2018, and they performed We Don't Talk Anymore and Fake Love together. But then after that, he seemed to not mention BTS anymore and deleted a tweet that was praising them that was on his Twitter feed. So a lot of BTS Army thinks, well, he just used them so he could try to get big in Asia and then stop talking about them, or and he wasn't a real fan of theirs and this and that. So that's where that comes from.
Right. They're upset about that. Well, first of all, it's not toxicity between fandoms, right? It's just toxicity between him and Army.
Yeah, like I don't know if he has a fandom, if that's what he's talking.
I'm sure he has fans, but they weren't arguing as fans, right?
No.
So people are just picking on him, and yeah, I mean, this is an old thing, and people are always accused of clout chasing, right?
How can you be upset about anything people say on TikTok or Twitter anymore? It's like there's always negativity like everywhere.
And the other thing is, I think a lot of fans don't realize that this is a really immature take on the business of music and celebrity. Was he posting about them for some self-serving ends? Yeah, but that's what people do, right? I mean, I'm sure it was mutually beneficial in some way, right? I mean, BTS got to be associated with him, and he's still a big star, right?
Yeah.
So this is just what people do. There's nothing malicious about it. And I'm sure it's not like BTS, they're not like a jilted girlfriend or something. They didn't think, oh, you promised that you'd love me or something. And no, you were just posting for clout or because it would be beneficial for whatever, your audience in Asia. Yes, obviously, they're not dumb. They know that. But it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah, I'm sure
collaborations are mutually beneficial.
They wanted to be mentioned with American artists too.
They're not dumb. They realize that, and I'm sure they don't resent it. It's part of the business. Now, if you ever have to run a business and advertise for a business and promote your business, maybe you would understand that. When you do collaborations with other people, why? Well, because for a lot of reasons. A, probably you do like that person. You think they do good work, right? But B, also because you think it will help your own career. Both things can be true, and both things probably are true in most cases. Why would you want to work with somebody you think is total garbage? If you think a person is total garbage, probably you wouldn't think that they can help your career any. So you must respect and appreciate their work some. And that's the reason why you want to collaborate, because you think it will be of a benefit to yourself as well. But that's normal. No one's being deceived. No one's being cheated or anything like that. I'm sure they both went in and thought, oh, this may be a mutually beneficial exchange. And as far as the other stuff about, oh, maybe he deleted a tweet, and I think you're just reading a lot into nothing.
I did see someone posted about, oh, it's not that he deleted it. He has some kind of service or feature app or whatever that he uses that deletes tweets that are over X number of years old.
Okay, yeah, maybe. I'm sure the explanation is normal. And I'm sure the reason why he collaborated with them is both things are true. He likes and respects BTS and likes their work, but he also thinks he can get something out of it. And the same is true with BTS. They don't just work with people because they have some fawning appreciation of them. They think they can get something out of it. There's nothing wrong with this. They're all business people. They're all trying to further their own careers. Nobody was cheated or anything, right? BTS doesn't lose anything. So I don't understand why you'd be angry about it. It just shows you don't understand how the business works. This idea that you're chasing clout, yeah, that's what people do. It's called self-promotion.
Yeah, people have to chase clout.
Yeah, it's called self-promotion, you know? And when you see two artists collaborate with each other, that means they're both okay with the arrangement. So why are you angry? They were both okay with the arrangement. Let's put it that way. Are you often upset with what two consenting adults do? Normally you'd say no if I didn't specify what they did, right? But in this situation, they collaborated on music. If BTS thought they were cheated, they would say so, right?
Yeah.
I can't imagine how they would think they were cheated. The collaboration happened, right? That's what they wanted. Maybe they got some Western eyes on them, which is probably what they were looking to do, right? Do something different, do something fun. And he got some Asian eyes on his work, which is probably what he wanted as well. I don't think fans should be angry because the artists were happy with it.
Overall, I think the clout chasing accusation is a little bit weak, but I do think it's suspicious that he posts all this stuff about being a victim and he's being attacked by ARMY. Yeah. He posts this as he has a new song out and a new video that's coming out. So I do think the timing is a little suspect for him to be like, I'm so upset by all this.
Right.
It's like, really? I'm sure you're used to having like negative feedback.
Yeah. I think that people who criticize him for chasing clout, in general, that's a very immature accusation, and it shows you don't know how things work. But I'm sure those people come out of the woodwork all the time. So that he posts about this now, it's pretty weak. You should be able to handle that criticism. I'm sure it's not millions of people posting that, right? So, he did this for a specific reason, and it's not... And to call it bullying, I mean, there were words online, so I wouldn't call it bullying.
It's such an overused word.
Yeah. Like when an anonymous person says something about me online, is it pleasant? No, I wouldn't say it's pleasant. But I would not use the word bullying, right? Especially when those people have no power over you. If people have no power over you, I feel like it's difficult to call it bullying. I really think that's a stretch. So yeah, he probably very selectively chose to talk about this and paint himself as a victim. That in itself is pretty weak. But that's a different type of clout chasing that is just typical of modern times, right?
Yeah.
People just like to say that they're a victim. Okay, well, here's a few tweets. I got some death threats. Like, well, if you're a celebrity, I bet you every celebrity gets X amount of death threats every week.
Yeah, there's always death threats.
I'm sure. And are they serious? It's hard to say whether they are or not, but, you know, most of them aren't, obviously.
It's just too easy for random people to type things.
Most of it's just jerks online. But everybody has jerks online saying bad things to them. The more famous you are, the more of them you'll have. When you decide to say, I'm a victim, look at all these death threats. Or I didn't even think you got death threats. It's just people saying you're a clout chaser, which is, is that even bullying? I don't know. That's a criticism.
Yeah, that isn't bullying.
That's a criticism. I think the criticism is off base, but I wouldn't call it bullying. Pretty weak on his part, yeah.
G-Dragon, the leader of Big Bang, is being accused of neglecting his dogs after people who visited his property. I guess it's like some place you can visit.
Like an Airbnb.
Yeah, I think the parents had rented something out that you can visit. But someone posted pictures of G-Dragon's 2 dogs that are housed there within sight of the guests, and they didn't like the conditions that they were being kept in. Mm-hmm. I saw a picture of it on one article, and it did seem like a pretty small area, and they were it was like an outside gated area. They had a dog house, but then they were kind of on a leash, and it didn't seem like it was that long, or a dog lead. So it was kind of like they were just left on their own outside for long periods of time. So it just seemed like they didn't get a lot of attention throughout the day. The other thing is there was other pictures that showed the dogs with really long nails, and that part I don't know if was that serious, because sometimes dogs just don't like getting their nails trimmed. So I don't know if these dogs were like that or not, but it did look like the conditions were not that good and that maybe these dogs don't get a lot of attention all day long. I'm not sure if it's neglect or if it's, people came by and that's the impression they got, and maybe that's not accurate, but
right.
This is what people are saying. The G-Dragon is neglecting his dogs.
Right. Well, that's not accurate because he's not taking care of them, right? He gave them to his parents. So I don't put a lot of stock in this. I understand most people in the West love dogs, and nobody likes to hear about dogs being abused, but I'm not sure this qualifies. They're not pampered the same way as dogs in the West are, maybe, and I don't know. It's hard to say when you don't see them all the time, right? This is a small snapshot of what their life was like. So is it fair to make a sweeping judgment based on that? I'm not sure. You don't know how many times they're walked in general, right? Maybe it was just that week or that few days. So it's really hard to draw conclusions based on that. I don't think it's fair to throw him under the bus for this.
Yeah, we don't know for a fact. That's just a small portion of time and just some pictures that got posted by visitors. And
relatively speaking, this isn't the worst. Trust me, this is not the worst treatment that dogs get throughout the world. Their pen is small. Their lead is somewhat short, right? They don't get a lot of walks. Okay, none of these are ideal, but I don't think it would qualify as trust me, it can get a lot worse than that.
Yeah, and I believe the people that saw this and wrote up a blog post about it, I believe they're from the West. So it's, of course, people from the West, like we have high standards for pets. But even here, there's people that mistreat their dogs all the time and like worse conditions than that.
Yeah. I don't think that a small area is necessarily the worst thing in the world. I mean, dogs get crate training in the U.S. There's some disagreement on whether crate training is humane, but there are a lot of intelligent, experienced dog people who say crate training is great for dogs, right? So this is from 2014 too. I think it's just people are dredging stuff up. I don't know if it's a fandom motivated thing or whatever, but it just seems off base to me. I'm not really ready to say that he abuses his dogs. That headline brings to mind things like Michael Vick dog fighting or something like that, right?
Right.
Like, okay, the pen is small. It doesn't get a lot of walk because the nails are long. Okay, none of these are ideal, but not giving a dog, and keep in mind, this is not him, this is his parents. Not giving your dog ideal living conditions is certainly not the same as abusing the dog. That's not the same thing at all, right? Imagine if you had that same standard when you talk about people raising kids.
Yeah, like they see the one time someone gets upset with their kid at a store or something. It's like, well, you're abusing
or
the kid.
Like, hey, in America, kids get to not work until the age of 18, and then their parents get them pay for their college education and this and that. And in other countries, they don't get any of those things. It's abuse. It's not abuse, You're pampered in this other situation. In certain countries, you're pampered. That's all. Is it nice to live in that? Yeah, sure, it's nice. But everybody who falls short of that is not, we're just going to call it abuse? No, there's countries where kids have to go get a job at 14. Is it abuse? No, that's just those are the conditions of that country and the standards and the culture and that's just the way it is there. I don't think that necessarily is abuse.
I do think it's possible that G-Dragon is neglecting his dogs, but we don't have the full picture, so I don't want to call him names or anything like that just based on that. But it is possible because sometimes people get pets and then, oh yeah, it's a puppy and this is exciting and this is great, and I got pictures of a puppy on social media, and apparently he's used these dogs in his videos sometimes. And it's like, oh, maybe it got old for him and he doesn't care anymore. Right. And okay, my parents, you take care of them and do whatever.
Well, yeah, I think that definitely happened. He's not taking care of the dog. It's at his parents' place. That's verified, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people have done that though, right? They've gotten a pet. They realize it's more responsibility than they could handle.
Yeah.
For him, maybe it's more fair because he is doing a lot of things with his time. And they said, hey, Mom, Dad, can you take care of the dog? Okay, yeah. That's happened so many times. So, yeah, I think that's fair. He, quote-unquote, neglects them. But in my opinion, basically, he handed off ownership of the animals, right?
Yeah.
That is the fairest way to put it. So, is he neglecting them? Yes. But they're no longer his dogs.
It should be the primary caretaker's responsibility. And
if the parents were not willing to take care of them properly, and we don't know that they are not, then they shouldn't have said yes. They should have said, well, you need to pay for a caretaker, or you need to send them to the pound, whatever, right? You know, you need to try to rehome them with someone else. That's what they should have said. But they took them in, and they're taking care of them. And I'm not ready to say that they're neglecting them either, just because their treatment falls short of the very idealized standards of the West.
Yeah.
I'm going to repeat. We have very idealized standards. And I'm not going to lie. I treat my dogs that way. My dogs get treated better than probably more than half of the human beings on Earth. But do I think that that means that, well, if you don't treat your dogs better than half the human beings on Earth, you're an evil person or bad person?
It equals abuse.
No. We have to take into consideration the context. Like, what if you're from a poor country? Do we expect people from poor countries to treat their dogs the same way? I expect you not to torture your dog, right? But is your dog going to get all the walks? Is your dog going to get all the best food? Is your dog going to get all the best health care? Human beings in that country don't get all the best health care. So that's a ridiculous, absurd
there's cultural
expectation.
differences here.
So, of course, that doesn't apply here because G-Dragon's rich. But they have different expectations as far as how much, pen space they get and things like that, right? Keep in mind that Korea generally has less space, living space in general, right?
Maybe they think that's a perfectly good amount of space,
Right.
It's like the humans have not much space.
Try to remember, people have less living space in some of these other countries. People have less living space. If I had to live in a 500 square foot apartment, I would think that I'm being abused. But you know what? That's not abuse to most human beings on Earth, right? I would think, this is torture. Oh my God. But that's pampered, privileged Western me talking.
That's a huge space in other countries.
In other countries, 500 square feet is a large amount of space. If you're in a foreign country, I don't know what the conversion is off the top of my head. 10 meters? I don't know. Okay, I don't know. 30 square meters? I don't know. Anyway, it's a very small apartment by American standards.
Yeah, it's a small one-bedroom or studio apartment. In
my opinion, I can no longer live in anything less than 2,000 square feet. That's a large amount of space. I wouldn't not want my dogs to eat dry dog food every day. I consider that torture, right? They need to have fresh meat. What the hell? For most of the world, that's a ridiculous standard to keep, right? So I think that people, when they're so quick to judge other countries, they should take into account how privileged and how pampered their standards are. This applies to both to people and to their pets. We have when we go on vacation, we don't just let the dog in the yard and put a bunch of food and water out. We have to send them to a pet hotel. And sometimes the boarding for the hotel costs more than a people hotel.
Yeah.
That is the standard here. And I follow it. I would never just leave my dog in the yard with some food. I would consider that unacceptable. I would need them to be in a facility or with a relative, right? They would have to be cared for constantly.
Somebody has to watch them.
Yeah. Is that the standard everywhere? Is it realistic to hold other cultures and countries to that standard? No, it's not reasonable. As long as they're not beating the dog, torturing the dog, things like that. I'm not going to use the word abuse. I would just say it would be nice if, considering he is very well off, right, that he could pamper them more. But keep in mind again that in regards to space, the standards of treatment they have of their dogs. Now, I don't know what they are in Korea. They're fairly advanced countries, so I'm going to guess their standards of treatment are high, okay? It's not going to be the same as it is in the maybe the Philippines or something, whatever, right?
Right.
Or Africa or something like that. So their standards are pretty high. But I do know that space is very much at a premium in Korea. So why should your dog get a gigantic backyard? Humans don't have a gigantic backyard. Do humans have a gigantic backyard in Korea? I don't think that generally they do, right? So a small pen is probably pretty normal.
Well, I mean, people were saying, why aren't these... And these two dogs, they're Shar-Pei, so they're kind of like big dogs. It's why don't they have these, allowed to run free in the countryside in these fields? Well, you can't just have your dog loose out there.
Then you lose your dog. They get into trouble,
Yeah, and then maybe they attack someone or whatever.
Yeah.
You can't have them just loose out in the world.
If it's in your yard, that's okay, but who has a gigantic fenced yard?
Yeah, you'd have to have a very secure fenced area.
Who has that much land? I don't know if this property they're talking about has a gigantic swath of land they can just let their dogs out in. I'm going to guess no. Did the dogs seem happy? Did they seem well fed? Did they seem healthy?
Their body condition looked good, so they look like they got plenty of food.
Did they seem happy and healthy?
So I think that's as much as you can ask for.
Yeah. Beyond that, I think it's okay. you know?
Yeah, let's not criticize too hard unless we have more information.
Right.
So last week we saw the How You Like That video from Blackpink, and now this week there's been some talk of cultural appropriation that was in it.
Mm-hmm.
First example was there's a statue of Ganesha used in Lisa's scenes where her part, it was more like Indian inspired, like the backdrop and her clothing and stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then the statue of Ganesha was placed near the floor or on the floor. It was hard to tell because it was kind of, the angle was above it. And it sounded like I don't know how many people complained, but they ended up YG removed it, the brief scene where it was shown from the video.
Well, did they digitally remove the statue?
Is that how they did? I didn't know.
Yeah, they didn't remove the scene.
Okay.
They can't remove a scene.
They just
right?
Edited with
you can digitally remove the
technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they thought, well, that was easier than to have to
right.
Defend why they did it. And I'm sure they just did it just to, this fits the scene and we'll put this here. And
what is your take on it?
Well, they said that the Ganesha was placed on the floor and then that's disrespectful to it. And it's not supposed to be on the floor. It's supposed to be on higher surfaces. But, I mean, I don't know if everybody is aware of that or if it was just, this...
There's just a prop or something.
Yeah.
I'm just going to assume that nobody intentionally was trying to be insulting.
No.
They were just ignorant about it. And this is not new. People use iconography from other religions. And yes, when they do that, other people are offended too. So that is also not new. Right? People use Christian stuff and they use stuff from Islam, obviously. Obviously, people are generally offended when you use anything from, because aren't you supposed to just not use it at all? Yeah. Okay, you're not supposed to use it at all.
Anything religious will get some people talking.
I don't think people are trying to offend, but at the same time, I do think it's good for YG to digitally edit it out. Because if you just did it out of ignorance and your intention was not to offend, then okay, fine. Then we'll just digitally remove it. So I do think that is good. They didn't fall over themselves to apologize, which I don't think they should have to, because it's just honest mistake. When you make honest mistakes, I think it's fair to just correct it, move on. And I think that's what they did. I did see some people saying things like, well, Lisa is Thai, and therefore, I mean, it is part of Thai culture as well, so it's okay. It is. I mean, it's not okay. It is okay. Yes. By your definition of okay, is it legal? Yeah, it's legal, right? But if you just don't want to offend a bunch of people, then okay, go ahead and digitally edit it out. It doesn't matter if Lisa's Thai or not, right? And I'm also not sure how many people are very genuinely offended.
Right.
Because you always get a certain number of people on Twitter who are offended.
Well, some people said just the fact that they're using the statue at all, because it's Hindu and you're just using Hindu as an aesthetic and it shouldn't be treated like that. But it's like all religions I've seen in videos
that I can't get
aesthetic.
behind, because I think that it's not fair for you to ask that your religion never be used as an aesthetic, right?
I've seen so many videos where that has happened.
Yeah, I don't think that's fair, because your thing, it exists out there, right? So I don't think it's fair to just say, hey, you can never, sort of just like one of the tenets of Islam is that you can't draw pictures of Muhammad or something like that, right?
Right.
You can't do it in a cartoon. You can't do it. Even if it's not meant to be offensive, you just can't do it. Well, I mean, people should try to accommodate you just out of courtesy as much as they can, but there have to be limits as well, right? It's a fine line, but you can't fall back on this, well, it's my religion, therefore I can dictate absolutely every single thing you do. No. What if I want to talk about your religion or criticize it? I should be able to, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if it's serious criticism or a serious discussion? Then we should be able to talk about it. We should be able to represent it in media or something like that, right? I don't think that I would never give up that right. Now you retain the right to still be offended by it, but I'm not going to apologize for it, right?
Yeah, I don't think that should be some kind of rule. Like never use religion as an aesthetic.
Oh well, I didn't like that you used it. Okay, that's too bad.
Like, that's not a rule, though.
Right. I can do what I want, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. I retain the right to do what I want, but in a situation where I wasn't making some sweeping political statement. It was just a prop. If it's just a prop, it didn't mean anything to me at the time, then I will, out of courtesy, edit it out. And I think that's a good thing. You didn't mean anything by it. It wasn't central to the video or anything, right? So edit it out. That's fine. But let's say conversely, what if somebody is making a video or a music video or a political video or something where it is central to present something about your religion? Because maybe they want to criticize Islam. They want to criticize Christianity, right? Well, they're going to represent it in the media. And you're just going to say, well, I'm offended that you represented it at all. Well, too bad, because it is central to my message to talk about your religion.
It's part of the point of this.
I'm here to criticize your religion or praise it or half-half, do some sort of analysis about it. That's my right. I'm not going to give that up, and I'm not going to apologize for it. What if, just putting it out there, what if somebody just, for whatever reason, and I don't know why they would be, because I don't know that many people who are, what if somebody wanted to criticize Hinduism, and they just wanted to put it on the floor? Because they said, well, this is my political statement. I want to put it on the floor because whatever, your criticism of it. People have done the same thing with Christian iconography, right? They want to criticize Christianity. So they use cross or whatever, in some way. Well, then do it. I fully endorse the right of people to be intentionally disrespectful. If they want to be disrespectful, hey, people make, if they want to make a political or, a statement through their art, that's art. Art is sometimes going to be confronting and it's going to be disrespectful of certain points of view. And I fully endorse that. I fully support that. I don't think those people should have to apologize whatever they're criticizing, if it's Christianity or it's Hinduism or it's Islam, or if it's something I believe in and I feel angry about it. I still support your right to criticize the thing that I support in your art. I don't expect an apology from you because your intention was to criticize it, obviously.
People who are saying don't use Hinduism as an aesthetic, or they're saying don't use X religion as an aesthetic, I think that's the wrong train of thought to go with, because you should be allowed to use whatever as an aesthetic. And that's happened in videos that are celebrated.
And we learn something every day. I didn't know that you're not supposed to put it on the floor. Not that I have one of those statues, but if I do have one of those statues, I won't put it on the floor. Right? But I think they went about it the right way. If you still have criticism of them, I don't know what to do for you. I think that they did their best. And some people are, if you're saying, oh, you should have just known better. Hey, people make mistakes, right? They didn't know that part of this culture. They'll know from this point on, guarantee you, but they didn't know, obviously. If they knew, they wouldn't have done it. How do I know? Because they edited out of the video.
I just don't agree with some people who are like, well, she shouldn't have anything Indian inspired because that's cultural appropriation. But it's like,
oh yeah, I don't think
when
it's
people are like, oh, don't have the bindi and don't have the different like Indian jewelry and then headdresses and stuff like that. It's like, well, that's an inspiration. That's not appropriation.
I don't think, I'm generally on the spectrum of people who think that there's such a thing as appropriation, and people who think there's not such a thing. I'm very heavily on the side of people who just basically don't think that's a thing. So yeah, I'm never going to be one that says, oh, that's what do you mean? First of all, I don't think culture is owned. I think culture just exists. Who owns it? Who has the copyright to it? Can you show me the owner? Is it you? Where does it say that you own it, right?
Yeah, and where does it say only the people in that culture can celebrate that culture?
Where does it say that you own it? I see people, this is a larger discussion, so I won't go into it that much, but I see people saying things like, oh, you're wearing braids. That's appropriation. Like, what? Only certain cultures and ethnicities wear braids? I see people making like tacos or whatever, like not all of them are Mexican, right? It's just a food. It's just a food. It's just like putting food inside a wrap.
Yeah.
Can someone own that?
It's just like another idea that, oh, I like that idea. Let me do that too.
Can someone own that? I don't think so. Maybe you think so, but you must live in a very complicated world that's even more complicated than our current copyright laws, okay? Because if you think that people can own, like, what does that mean? Putting meat inside a wrap, someone can own it? A lot of cultures have independently come up with meat inside of a wrap. Now who owns it? I don't know. Let's parse it out. It must be very tiring to be you if you think that way.
I don't even believe in cultural appropriation. It's more like cultural sharing or cultural celebration. It's like you're doing the same style because you like it and you're sharing it. So I don't even see it as a negative thing. So if you're saying, oh, Lisa is wearing too much Indian clothing and jewelry and then that's appropriation, it's like, no, it's not. It's not. It's just it's celebrating it. It's highlighting it. It's sharing.
Another thing, you're very short-sighted if you get angry at cultural quote unquote appropriation, which we call just cultural diaspora, cultural sharing, cultural adopting, right? Because there's power in your culture spreading. There's power in that. And there's power in your language spreading. Think about how powerful it is that the language of the internet is English, and that people born in English-speaking countries have an advantage already on the internet, right? Because you speak the language of the internet. Other people have to learn that language. Think about how powerful it is that the modern men's lounge suit, which what other average person just calls a suit, right? A suit, jacket, slacks, tie, collared shirt. That's a suit, a men's suit, right? But that's from a culture. That's from like British culture, Western culture.
Yeah.
But people in Japan wear it. People in India wear it. There is a certain power that comes with that. There's a certain power in the fact that there's a McDonald's everywhere. There's a Pizza Hut everywhere, right? These things are... Do you think that Americans or people in the West are upset that people in Japan are wearing suits? Like, what are you doing wearing a suit and tie?
That's our thing.
That's our thing, man. You wear kimono or something right now.
You wear your thing.
Yeah,
we'll
that's
wear
yours. That's
our
yours.
thing.
Suit and tie is ours. Stop. No.
They didn't say that.
Japan, they totally adopted a bunch of Western culture, not just the suit and tie, but some other things too. And from that, this is an involved topic, but from that, there are certain advantages to the originating culture. They adopt, it's a constellation of things. They adopt certain philosophies, certain viewpoints, certain things, right? They come closer to your culture. That's an advantage. That's good.
It shows respect that it's spreading, like your idea is spreading.
Yes. And it brings people closer together, because anytime you have countries that have a more similar culture than dissimilar, this is totally unscientific. If I went back to my college days, I could probably find some data that backs this up. If I pursued a useless doctorate, I could probably do this study or whatever. I'd write a thesis about this. But countries that have more shared culture are less likely to go to war with each other, right? There's more peace between countries that have shared culture. Just think about it. It's common sense, right? If we dress the same, if we eat the same food, if we speak the same language, how likely we're going to be to just go kill each other en masse, right? As opposed to how likely is it that we'll go kill people who speak a different language, wear different clothes, eat different foods that just seem totally alien to us. We're much more likely to go kill those people. You're creating a more peaceful world by expanding culture and sharing it, and everybody adopting similar cultures and, taking from each other.
We should look at this as
why
a
is
good
that not
thing.
a good? Yeah, why is that not a good thing?
It should be a good thing when
we adopt similar forms of government. That's an even more important thing.
Yeah.
Is it cultural appropriation? Maybe we should have from 1800 through 1950, when so many countries adopted quote unquote democracy and used as a blueprint the American Constitution. Maybe Americans should have said, stop doing that. That's cultural appropriation. That's our document. Create your own form of government, whatever, right? Should we have done that? No. I'd argue that it was good, because don't you want them to come closer to your values? And just like Americans adopting other cultures, like we eat sushi, we eat certain things. So now other foreign cultures seem less foreign, right? And it's not all these weird Japanese people eating, what is it they're eating? Sushi?
It's like, wow, they're weird.
Gosh, what weirdos. And then going to war with them doesn't seem that out of bounds or something. But if you share a lot of cultures, and yeah, I know it's minor. It's just like, oh, you eat certain foods, big whoop. Yeah, but that's one thing. And then another thing, and then another thing, right? A lot of little bits of culture get shared and passed back and forth. Even the word that's used, sharing of cultures, as opposed to appropriation of culture, it clearly shows you have a different viewpoint on what is going on. What if people said, why are you eating sushi? Don't open a sushi restaurant in America. You're not even Japanese. Why are you opening a sushi restaurant? Okay, I won't then. Okay, now less Americans are introduced to that food. Why are you bringing over this Japanese animation and just dubbing it with terrible English dubs? This is the thing that's happened, by the way. It would probably be called cultural appropriation at some point. Or, well, today it'd probably be called cultural appropriation. But in the past, people just looked at it like, well, some Westerners liked some anime, and then they said, well, we want Western audiences to see it, so we have to dub it. Yes, the dub was terrible, and they did other bad things to it, but the net result is that people were exposed to another culture.
Well, it's like in the 70s when America was like so interested in Kung Fu all of a sudden, and they're like, wow, this is awesome, knowing martial arts.
Right.
And it's like, that opened up a lot of
And when they were first doing it, did they treat it like, look at like the Kung Fu shows from the 70s or the 80s or whatever. Did they have a lot of Asian caricatures? Was it treated in like 2020 woke way? No, of course what? People in 2020 probably find it offensive. But it was only due to people sharing it in that rudimentary, perhaps slightly offensive way. That started the ball rolling. That started the sharing. That started people getting interested in foreign cultures. Is that not a good thing? So it's been a long tangent, but I am definitely not one of those people to complain about appropriation. And this is not appropriation. They weren't trying to do a caricature or ridicule it in any way. They just thought it looked interesting. They thought it fit a motif. Yes, was it just for aesthetic? Yeah. Sometimes that's how your culture gets in. That's how they get used to it and how they normalize it. You're not this weird other anymore. We've seen this stuff. You're a normal part of our global community. It's not always going to be perfect. Sometimes people will mess up. It might be slightly offensive, sure. But the net effect of cultural sharing, I think, is a good thing. And in general, you should be for it, regardless of maybe some rough patches in the process. But it concerns me that in general, I see that people are not for it. They are against it.
Right. In fact, they're like looking for examples of, oh, here's cultural appropriation. Yeah. Here's why it's bad. Here's why everybody needs to stay in their little box and only do their own culture. Right. It's like, that's not a good idea moving forward.
Right.
It just leads to everybody fighting with everybody else. Thank you to our guest, Morgan. You can find BTS Happy Hour on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, Castbox, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. New episodes weekly. Please comment, leave a review, or rate wherever you are listening to the podcast. Follow BTS Happy Hour on Twitter and Facebook. Until next time, this has been the BTS Happy Hour. Thanks for listening, and remember, make every hour a happy one.